Oh, shit. We're all set? All right, welcome to the 2025 New Jersey Football Coaches Rules presentation. Thank you to the Super Football Conference for presenting and sponsoring this today. We want to thank Clifton High School for hosting today. We also want to thank Tom Malahy and his staff for presenting today and helping us be able to get this stream out to all of the New Jersey football coaches. First, we're just going to give some introductions. My name is Mark Bitar. I'm the assigner of the Super Football Conference, the Big Central Conference, the NJIC, as well as the NJSA playoffs for football. In attendance here tonight is going to be Ryan McCleary. He assists with the assigning of sub-varsity football. And we also have Mike Valenzano, who is our new NJFOA North rules interpreter. So we're going to start first with if anybody has any rules questions throughout the year. Now, these are rules questions. These are anything that you have a question about a rule. You can scan this barcode. You also see the hyperlink here where you're going to see a link to the website. You can be able to go and be able to send any questions that you may have, and Mike will be able to get back to you. Give him about 48 hours to get back to all coaches and go from there. As an FYI, we want to go over a few of our social media accounts, and we also want to be able to go over our website. We're on Instagram, X, we have a YouTube channel, and we also have a website. If you know anybody that is interested in officiating football, please have them visit our website. We would love to be able to go and recruit more members. We need officials. This is a great way for them to follow. Even if you're not ready to do it this year, please just give us a follow on one of our social media platforms. Go visit our website, take a look at what we have. We would love to be able to bring any new members. So let's go right into the rule changes for the 2025 season. First, starting in 2026, there are going to be illegal mouthpieces that are going to include any type of attachment or adornments. So for example, in the slide that you're seeing here, these are technically legal for the 2025 season, but starting in 2026, these would all be considered illegal due to the fact that they have these extra things on them. For example, any type of those adornments, they even have the spinning wheel or anything like that. Starting in 2026, those will all be considered illegal. These, however, will all still continue to be okay. These are regular mouthpieces, but just have logos on them. These will all be legal in 2025 and 2026 and beyond. All right, so this just gives you another example of what's legal and what's illegal. Obviously, with this one, when you actually see something coming off of the mouthpiece, that would then be considered illegal. And then obviously this one here is just, you're going to see just writing on it. As long as it's nothing inappropriate, these would all be considered legal. They're also now going into the arm sleeves. Starting in the 2027 season, it needs to has the has the SFIA logo. Right now, this is the same rule that you are going to see for gloves, where they're going to either have the SFIA logo or the NOXA logo, and it's going to be the same rule for arm sleeves starting in the 2027 season. Nothing you need to worry about for 2025. However, this is definitely something you want to make sure you're prepared for come 2027. Electronic signs update. These, if you are displaying play signals without any type of audio, these are now permitted on the sidelines. So if you're going in, bringing up any signs, you're going to see this a lot. Even if you watch any type of college football, you'll see a lot of signs coming from the sideline to try to bring in a play, especially for teams that are going no huddle. This would be considered to be legal, including electronic. Now, these are only legal if used during an improved timeout and outside the 9-yard mark, which is where the numbers are normally on a field. So wherever those large numbers are, the 10, 20, 30-yard line, you cannot ever use those inside of those numbers. But outside, during a timeout, those would be considered legal. Okay? Got a lot of questions about this last year. These are still considered to be illegal equipment in regards to the electronic arm sleeves with being able to provide the plays. Those are still considered illegal, and they are not allowed. And I don't see this ever becoming legal anytime soon, but this is something we need to make sure everybody understands is completely illegal. We also saw a lot of this, the coach-to-player communication. You cannot have any type of audio being sunk into a helmet during any game. That's illegal. There is a lot of these types of things on the market right now, but they are illegal in the high school game. Okay? So this just gives you an example. We've even seen it where there's a couple of them where they have a video camera on a player during a game. So make sure that if any of these things are done, it's obviously a 15-yard penalty assessed against the coach, but we don't expect this to be an issue in New Jersey, as we'll all play by the rules and make sure that we have no audio or video during on any of our players. A lot of questions came up about footballs. The rule is pretty simple. As long as you have the NFHS logo on it, you're going to be in a good place. A lot of questions came out about the Omega football. If the Omega football has an NFHS logo on it, it is legal. Okay? All right, so here is the big rule change for 2025, and that's going to be on a forward fumble that goes out of bounds, okay? And that's between the goal lines. So, for example, in this scenario here that you're going to see on your screen now, you have the ball carrier number 8-1. He fumbles the ball at the 10-yard line, and the ball goes out of bounds at the 6-yard line. We're going to bring the ball back to the spot of where the fumble was and bring it back to the 10-yard line, and the game clock will start on the ready for play. This is the same rule that you will see at the higher levels. Let's go through different scenarios here. If you have another one where that same scenario where they fumble at the 10-yard line, though, and the ball goes through the end zone, there is no difference on the rule change. This would still be considered a touchback in 2024, and it'll continue in 2025 and beyond, considered to still be a touchback. We'll go through one of these. Is now we have that same scenario where the fumbler fumbles at the 10-yard line, and the ball goes back. Okay, so now in this scenario, the ball carrier fumbles at the 10, ball goes out of bounds at the 12-yard line. We would now put the ball at the 12-yard line where it is ruled out of bounds. We do not want to give any advantages, and when you think about perspective and overall with this rule is, you do not want to give an advantage to the offense for fumbling the ball and if it goes forward. But if they fumble and it goes backwards, that's hurting the offense. So in a case like this, we don't want to help the offense by putting them at the 10. So if it goes backwards, fumble out of bounds, we're going to keep it at that spot. So we're going to talk about if the fumble goes forward and does not go out of bounds, there is no change. Whoever falls on that fumble will have the ball at that spot. Okay? There is no fourth down fumble rule in high school as there is in the upper levels. So please note that. If you see any type of fumble that happens in the field of play, we will play that as we've always done it in the past. All right, so now let's go through a couple of scenarios that can come up that are a little more intriguing. If you have a scenario where A1 fumbles in A's end zone, and he fumbles it forward out of bounds to the 2-yard line, the spot at which he fumbled the ball is in the end zone, and he put that ball in the end zone. So in this scenario, we're going to go back to the fumble spot. So this would turn into a safety. Excuse me. The next one. You're going to see now the offense, A, fumbles the ball into the end zone. B then recovers the ball in the end zone. So they didn't put it in the end zone. They got it there. And then then B1 fumbles in the end zone. This would still be considered a touchback. And even if they forward the ball, fumbles from A's end zone forward, you're still going to go back to the fumble spot, and this would still be a touchback. Please also know what constitutes a fumble. If you have a center quarterback exchange and the quarterback never possesses the ball, that is then still considered a backwards pass and not a fumble. So in order to be able to have a fumble, you must have possession first. So if you have a muff from the center, it does not create a fumble, so then that rule will not go into place because you have to have a fumble in order for this rules to come into play. You also have the momentum rule. So let's say, for example, defense number 22 intercepts the ball at the 3-yard line, and his momentum brings them into the opponent's end zone. While in the end zone, number 2 fumbles that ball forward out of bounds, either in the end zone or out of bounds in the field of play. Because we have that momentum spot, we are going to go back to the 3-yard line. Illegal participation penalty has been revised where unfortunately, if on the field, if we see too many men on either the offense or the defense and we catch it before the snap, that is a 5-yard penalty. But if they play with 12 or more players, that has now turned into an illegal participation penalty, and this just clarifies where the actual spot will be of enforcement. So, for example, if we have a 20-yard pass and we have an illegal participation on the defense, you will decline the illegal participation because it would go from the previous spot, and so in that scenario, a 20-yard pass would be better than the 15-yard penalty. So they would take that. So again, just clarifies this. Some editorial changes for 2025. This year, a school mascot is now considered a legal adornment to a jersey. So on top of the numbers of a jersey, you can now have a jersey number, the school nickname or logo, as well as a player name, all of which were already permissible, but now they're adding the mascot to this. All right, so just some NFHS rule reminders from prior years to make sure we're all on the same team. The home team jerseys all be the same dark color that clearly contrasts to white. Nothing we haven't done different in New Jersey. They wanted to clarify this because technically, based off of the rule, this would be considered have been legal. So we just wanted to clarify when you wear your dark jerseys, you wear the same color dark. So just semantics. Some points of emphasis for this upcoming year. This comes from the NFHS. They are always talking about illegal and improperly worn player equipment, sportsmanship, and defenseless player targeting. So we'll go through those. So the first one, this list lists all legal and necessary equipment for a football player to have. Okay? You need to go through all of these scenarios to make sure that they have every single one of these things. When the head coach and the referee meet before the game, one of the things that they always ask is, are all players properly equipped? When you say that all your players are properly equipped, you are saying that they have all of the necessary equipment to play football. So one of the things that the NFHS is to support the safety of all participants, and I'm reading this verbatim to everybody, players must wear equipment and uniforms that are properly fitted and worn as intended by the manufacturer. So do not try to change anything that the manufacturer created for it. So if they made something to be worn a certain way, do not try to change any of those things. Okay, so obviously for illegal player equipment, you are still not allowed to wear jewelry when playing football. Tinted visors remain illegal equipment. This is still considered to be illegal. Even though you kind of see his eyes, it doesn't matter. Unless it's completely clear, it is considered illegal equipment. Now, also remember, Players can wear sunglasses. They can wear goggles as well, but these tinted visors are not allowed. Unfortunately, one of the manufacturers has now used the term prism clear that has that hue. That is still not clear, and so this would still be considered illegal, even though the manufacturer named it prism clear. It needs to be completely clear, which you can see on your screen, the legal side and the illegal side. Non-compliant eye shade, it needs to be one single solid stroke under each eye. Okay, they just want that one piece. This is something that they want to make sure is done in our game. So it's just a rule. This comes from Indianapolis, and these are the things we need to follow. Arm and leg bands that don't serve a medical purpose. We've seen a lot of players now that have these types of things over their arms especially. These are considered to be illegal unless it's for medical reasons. And we'll go through an example of that shortly. There we go. So the patellar tendon strap. Okay, this considered a medical purpose, that is considered to be legal because of that. Unless it doesn't have a medical purpose, it would be considered illegal. So when you're talking about uniform adornments like towels that do not conform to rules, we're not, this is something that hasn't been an issue. Towels must be a solid color. All players do not have to have the same towel color, but they're talking about the logo should not exceed 2 1/4 square inches. I don't believe any of our officials will have a tape measure on them, but we just do want to provide you with the rule of what it is. But make sure they're not the same color as the ball, so make sure your towels are not brown, and please make sure that they are not yellow that looks like a penalty flag. So the next one, this has become the bane of my existence, is the knee pads. That is just unfortunately what always comes up. Everybody always complains about it. If the worst case scenario is that we're complaining about knee pads, we're in a pretty good place in New Jersey on football. So pants that do not cover the knees, one of the things that I've told our officials and I've told the coaches, please, if you're wearing these types of tights, make sure you're wearing pants possibly that are the same color as those tights so that it can be a little easier to be able to show. But one of the things that we can't allow is these biker type shorts. This is a problem. We have to follow what the rules are. We all have, these are the piece that always becomes an issue, okay? So please make sure that we're getting those knee pads, and honestly, make sure if you have tights below the pants, we have them as the same color, and it's going to help everybody, the officials as well as your players. Okay, this is obviously illegal equipment for multiple reasons. Okay, you're going to see the armbands. You're going to see the also the eyes color is completely shaded. You can't even see the player's eyes. But in 2025, that piece actually, the mouthpiece, is actually considered to be legal for 2025, and it will not be for 2026. Okay, so this just talks a little more about illegal and improperly worn equipment. This just gives us more pieces on that, where if you have any kind of chronic violations, and I'm sure we will not, hopefully not have that. Because of the lack of enforcement in college, the NFHS in high school has now tried to be able to push this throughout. Again, this is coming from Indianapolis, so we have to just try to maintain the rules. Okay? The NJSA has asked officials to do the following. Obviously, when players are found to have required equipment missing or worn improperly, players should be replaced for at least one down. And they're talking about if it's persistent and that people are not following the rule, you could have a delay of game or possibly even an unsportsmanlike conduct on that player. Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about sportsmanship as well. If you go and you have a first down, and I've talked to the officials about this to make sure we're all on the same page. If we go and we see a catch, team is down by 2 touchdowns, goes, catch the ball, gets a first down, 20-yard pass, gets excitement, gives a first down signal, a little bit of motion, does not do that to a player, that is considered to be legal. We are not going to penalize that person. But if you go in front of your defender and you do one of these and puts it right in that player's face, that is now unsportsmanlike conduct. If, in this scenario, you do a little dance, if you try to show that you're holding a gun, do a little quick bow and arrow towards your defender, those are all considered to be illegal and would be flagged for 15 yards for an unsportsmanlike conduct. But to have a little bit of a high five with your teammate or anything like that, that would be considered to be legal. But obviously, and I've told our officials this, common sense will prevail in scenarios like this. We just need to make sure that we're not insinuating that we're trying to say something to our opponent and trying to create something that we don't want to have. We just want to play the game of football, but obviously in this great game, we do have a little bit of excitement when we have a bigger play. We just need to make sure that we're not putting it into the face of our opponent. We talked about defenseless receivers. So we're going to go through a definition in the rule book. A defenseless player is a player who is, because of his physical position and focus, is especially vulnerable to injury. So you cannot initiate forceful contact against a defenseless player. So we're going to go through some of these scenarios. The following are ways to avoid this penalty. And this is nothing that is different. And we've been talking about this for probably almost 5 to 10 years now. Contact is deemed incidental as a result of making a play on the ball. Contact is initiated with open hands. Contact is made in an attempt to tackle by wrapping arms around the receiver. And then the head and neck are avoided at all costs. Okay? Going back to football gloves, obviously you have to have the SFIA logo on those football gloves, and you can see how small the logo is. So I'm sure all of our officials will be able to see that inside and out with those little logos on the gloves. No logo is illegal. Guardian caps, I know this has come up. Those are legal throughout the season, whether it's the pre, regular, and postseason. The Q collar, those are permissible for the 2025 season as well. And so now we're going to go into some rule reminders throughout the NJSA to make sure we're all on the same page. The point differential, or that running clock mercy rule that we have, the score differential will reach 33 points or more in the second half. Once it does that and it's met, we will not revert back to normal timing rules. This is not a rule change. This is something that happened a year or two ago. I just want to remind everybody of that rule. And it is in effect throughout the state playoffs as well, and in effect for all levels, including freshmen and JV. Halftime should be 15 minutes, and it can be increased to a maximum, let me repeat this, a maximum of 20 minutes, okay? Provided opponents no later than 5 minutes prior to the game. So we need to make sure that if you are having some type of halftime and you're going to have homecoming or anything like that, keep it to those 20 minutes and make sure both teams know in advance of the game so nobody is caught off guard before the game, okay? I don't think I've ever seen this really. It can actually be reduced to 10 minutes, but I don't really think I've ever seen too much of that. Okay, so disqualifications. This is new for this year, and this is throughout all sports in the NJSAA. A player or coach can now be DQ'd from a scrimmage. That's the first time that's happened now, and that would not count towards the 3 disqualifications of being ineligible for the state tournament. So if it happens in the preseason, you're still going to sit out your game, but it will not count towards the 3 disqualifications of being ineligible for the state tournament. So that's the first time that we've ever had that. The drone policy has not changed in the last 4 years. Pretty much that is what it is verbatim from the NJSA handbook. However, to summarize it, it's allowed for the regular season, but it's not allowed for the NJSA playoffs. That's it. So do we have any questions? Well, welcome everybody to the 2025 season. We wish you all the best of luck, and let's have a great year.